I came back in 96 after several phone calls from Father.
Where had you been?
Where did I go? I went over to North Carolina.
A couple of schools. Yeah. You were back in Kansas City when you...
Yeah. Then I moved back to Kansas City. I was enjoying the young nightlife and got engaged and broke that off. And then I said, yeah, this is fun. And he, boy, are you going to come back? Okay. Yes, I eventually need to come back. I get it. And so I made my way back in 96, and it's just been a great ride and great experience, and learned a lot, obviously. Coming back, I was kind of sitting in my office, kind of looking over everything. I said, okay, this is what we do. And I think, I said, well, I wonder how we can get this really going. And so I made a few phone calls to some distributors and said, what do we need to do? What's going on? How are we going to get more product out there? And we had some discussions, and it was a while before we had something new. You know, we were really ramping up in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and in the 80s, and then things kind of, mellowed out a little bit. And so I kind of thought maybe that's what it is. Maybe we need something new. And
they gave us some frank feedback.
Yeah, which was great, because, I like the honesty.
What'd they tell you?
You're stale. You're make the best postal digger, your old company, but you're stale. Hey, thanks. I'm not a tiptoe around the bush type of guy either. Mm-hmm. So I sat there and thought about that, and I was like, that makes sense. And so then we started putting plans together of how we're going to change it. And obviously you want to add new products, but what do you want to add? You want to make the same old, you want to do things different. And so we like to be different. And so we really put our minds together with our team and said, what if we do this and this and make it like this? And a lot of our new products took several years to come out of R&D and several more years to come out of testing. And you'd like to ramp it up quicker, but you got to go back to the old history. Good enough won't do, it must be right. Nobody needs to test our products. Nobody. We need to test, design, and perfect it. And then when we send it out there, we need to have that comfortable level that says, yep, there's another good piece of Danuser equipment.
If it has our name on it, again, it's got to be right. We're not going to let it out the door
without
knowing.
Yeah, we could have shortchanged a lot of that and just thrown something together and learn from customers, but that's not the right way to do that.
We've had people ask us and encourage us to do that through the years. Oh, if you guys would just do this or just do that, and you have to take a good long look in the mirror and say that's not who we are.
Right.
Yeah, we're not in for the speed race. We're in for the long haul, which means we're going to be a little slower, but we're going to get it. We're going to do it right.
We're a little slower sometimes.
Sometimes.
Glenn, talking about your prior to coming back, were you working in the industry in some other faction?
I was in sales. I was bouncing around doing retail sales and restaurant and bar and just, like I said, just bouncing around as a young man having a great time.
Yep.
Not a worry in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is one thing I would give our parents credit. They never forced the business on us growing up. It wasn't, we obviously grow up in a family business and you like to think that you leave work at home and you don't talk about it at the dinner table, but the reality is it's your life and livelihood. So there is a lot of conversation, but they never forced it. And I think we actually had that conversation in high school because I remember just thinking, I don't think I want to sell postal diggers the rest of my life, Dad. And then you grow up and you realize there's a lot more to a business than selling one end product. And for me, in my case, it was more a matter of realizing that, we are family owned and operated, but like Glenn said, we truly are a family business in a lot of ways. There's lots of people, lots of generations of other families that have been tied to Danuser Machine Company through the years, and realizing that responsibility, I think was really important for me.
Now, I want to back up a little bit. I came back officially in sales, marketing in 96. However, I grew up in the company, and my first job in the company was pushing a wheelbarrow in the basement, collecting steel shavings out of a machine and dumping them into the recycle pit. And so I would have to push this heavy, god-awful wheelbarrow around and dump them. And then I eventually moved up to assembly. I did assembly work. I did warehousing work. I actually was in tool and die for about 3 to 4 years to learn how to read the different gauges and then thousandths of an inch and run mills and lathes and so forth. That was pretty important because I didn't want to be the kid that came back into the family business and went straight into the office and said, I'm here. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I wanted to be the guy that's did all the work all through there. I did everything in the shop except for production work. I did not, you don't want to put me on a machine to crank out production parts because they may not be correct.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do that. But nowadays, you get younger people in there that says, well, we just can't do it like that. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. I said, let me go top off my coffee and I'll be right back. And I said, show me what you're doing. And he's showing. I said, now hang on. I said, what if you tried this, this, this? He goes, well, how do you know how to do that? I did this. This is one of my jobs I did when I was younger. Oh, I said, what did you think I did? I just figured you came on in and went straight to sales. And that was a reason. I wanted to learn everything the ground up. Mm-hmm. And so I liked that, and I'm going to try to do the same thing. I agree with Janae that Mom and Dad never pushed the company on us. Mm-hmm. And just left it there and said, if you want to work, you want to work there, fine. You don't, fine. I mean, we were mowing the yards outside the shop, getting paid for that too when we were young.
My first job was getting flies.
Yeah, you were a fly killer.
Yeah, and when it went up to like 10 cents a fly, I started going outside.
Oh, yeah.
I was.
There's
You're
not
on
a safe
incentive.
fly.
That's right.
What was your path into the business?
Well, coming back to the business, I came back full-time in 99. Like Glenn, I obviously grew up with
Did you
and
come
around.
right out of school? Or?
I graduated college in 96.
Okay.
And I moved out to Seattle for a couple of years and had some work experience there. And I like to think I learned a lot of good lessons working for other people, some things to do and a lot of things not to do as an employer. And so that was really good. And I remember in particular a tragedy that happened to an employee, and that was part of the pull. And then Glenn and Dad were calling me and letting me know this news and said, do you have an interest in coming back? And we kind of joked to this day. He was telling me, yeah, you said you were just going to come back and clean things up for a few years. I was like, I don't think that was quite the way it went.
Right.
But I do
now
remember,
she's built a house in town.
Yeah.
but I do remember thinking, well, I don't know that I'll stay in Fulton. I mean, I was in Seattle.
It was out of a need. You were needed to come back and to.
Oh yes, he desperately needed my help. So I could contribute on a certain level there and add to some things that we needed, and my background and background at that point you're a college graduate. My background in organizational management leaves you to think that you can do some things in a family-owned business, and we did. I think in those early years, and
We have a very unique skill set with each of us, and it blends well.
that's a good way of putting it.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
How would you describe that unique skill set?
I just made that up.
Yeah.
That's why it's unique.
Well,
We balance each other well.
I really like to deal with people. I like to see people. I do all the trade shows. I travel to dealers. I like to listen. What's the need on the farm, the house? What's the problem? And try to think, And I kind of tend to do a little doodling myself and say, well, what if we made something like this and throw it to the engineers? And so I'm kind of good with that. I really enjoy the sales aspect and the marketing. I was pretty good in marketing in school. And Janae is very detail-oriented, and she can keep us all on the straight and narrow path.
I can crack the whip.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tend to go left and right, and
I mean, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people assume that maybe some employees are more fearful of me, or I don't know exactly. That's not the right word, because I would certainly say that's
Glenn's nodding.
That's not the case. When they come to me with their wide variety of personal issues, sometimes very personal issues, I'm like, they're not that scared of me if they're going to tell me all the things that they do. But that, again, that's part of being family owner operators. We think that that's what's different. You treat people differently. You listen. There's situations that happen in people's lives, sometimes outside of their control, and you deal with it as best you can, and in a fair way by listening to each person.
so we have fun, but we also get the business done.
Yeah.
He's
you can
front office
see
and
that.
back office.
So I've known Jerry, I don't know, 12, 13 years or so, but even early on, it had seemed that he'd handed the wheel over the company to you guys. Was it about that time period that?
He's still our president and chairman of the board, but obviously the day-to-day operations for many years we've been handling. But we certainly didn't take it over anytime soon. We were there.
Yeah, like you said, once we were back and kind of in the business, then he didn't really need to come in every day, and he didn't really want to come in every day. But there's no reason to remove him.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Leave him president, chairman of the board.
Yep.
We can pick his brain whenever we want.
Yeah.
Right.
We can call a board meeting and really screw up the shooting.
But what do you think that you've learned from Jerry and Mom about business principles that you want to that are embedded in your DNA, and you hope to the next generation to certainly pass those very same?
I would say ethics, morals, shoot straight, don't ever lie. You don't know the answer, get the answer, get back to the people. You know, this industry is built on relationships. That's what it is. Okay, people buy from you because of who you are and how you deliver yourself. We've been with vendors for, suppliers for 50 plus years, and we know we can get the parts cheaper, but we don't have any problems. Okay, so it's not necessarily driven by cost. You got to ask yourself, why are we sitting here? Why are we a fourth generation, 107-year-old family company? And I can only come up with one word, and that's quality. So don't ever forget the roots of good enough won't do, it must be right. We don't need to go out and shop all the components and start saving pennies, nickels, and dimes, and sometimes dollars. Because what happens if the life of the product then is shortened and things start to fall apart? You know, it's not about the cost. You got to keep the quality.
And I would add the lessons we talked about earlier that he, always told us, don't borrow money, the banks want it back plus interest. Being good stewards of our money and making sure that we're comfortable and we can make payroll and saving up for capital improvements and things that we need to do. So we can be fairly conservative probably when it comes to our financial matters. And I think actually some of our longer term employees were pretty nervous in 09 and 10 coming out. We knew that business was going to come back. And we made some significant capital investments at that time that I think typically the hunker down mentality of some of the older generation, they were a little nervous, but as soon as it came back, we were prepared. And we really have not slowed down since.
Glenn, you had said you weren't, well, I guess both of you weren't sure exactly whether you were going to come back to the business. So what is it that ultimately, when that light bulb turned on, said this is something I got to be part of, or, take us back to that point?
You watch your parents' life, and they were fortunate to do some traveling and some hunting, and I thought, I'd like to have that freedom, like to be my own boss.
Boy, you got snowed, didn't you?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, now look at me. Yeah. I'm in the same building now with her. That was not part of the plan. But no, it's just to create the future. I mean, to actually think that, hey, I'm not just going to work from 8 to 5 or whatever, 9 to 5, and you're sitting there, you're actually doing something and you're changing it and you're making it go. And you can control this ship. I mean, if you want to go slow, fast, hard turn, U-turn, whatever, you've got that power to do it. And so it's kind of exciting to see it, just take off and spread its wings, and it's starting to glide now. And so I don't know. I don't really know what brought it out. Just thinking that, okay, I was sick of the retail, the restaurant, the bartending type stuff. I was like, I want to do something different. And those type of positions, you're always catering, for those people, and it's right there. And don't get me wrong, I do the same thing today, but I get to do it on a different level, a different scale. The bar, they come and they sit down, they wait for a table, they get a drink. Okay, well now they're coming into the booth at the trade show and they want to know more about your product line. They want to know more about your company and how you do things. And that's your opportunity to get up and go.
And I think I mentioned it before. For me, it was more of thinking of the employees, all the people that we're associated with. Not just obviously the customers and maintaining a business. And, obviously Glenn's married, has 2 kids, and so we can think of a 5th generation and try not to pressure them.
I don't.
And luckily Corbin is very fortunate. He has a younger sister that can...
I see very similar traits, because he's kind of like me. I'm going to call him the little Porsche. He likes to get up and go. Yeah. But sister, I've been watching her.
She can keep him straight.
I see an engineer in her.
Ooh.
She likes to tinker, and the little 6-year-old's been putting puzzles together when she was a little kid, and I always choose the top of the box cheap, right? Mm-hmm. See how it goes together? Yeah, she just throws it aside. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, what is she doing? I come back 5-10 minutes later to finish. I think she's detail oriented. She might make a good product engineer. Mm-hmm.
You're fourth generation. That's about as old as we're going to find, or the most generations we're going to find in this group out here. Looking forward, fourth generation, there just doesn't seem to be like we're going to continue to see this kind of thing. It's very unique. Some of the older companies we've seen have sold out to other companies, and they don't have it still. What do you think are the keys to those who want to see it passed on to that, in your case, fifth generation?
Change. Don't be scared of change. You have to think outside the box. You have to take your blinders off. What you've been doing for several years, like building quality pieces, that shouldn't change. But building the same pieces, that should change. Okay, and so you need to address what's happening, what's changing in the world. How is farming changing? How is construction, utility? All these industries are changing. You got drones and you got automated tractors and so forth. And so you gotta keep going forward, and you can't be scared. And I think that's where some people are like, well, I don't really know if I want to go here. And I was like, get in there. And so that's what I think.
And I think it's also not just business model in terms of products and what you're selling and your vision of your company. There are a lot of logistics involved in passing on a business and buying a business and inheriting a business and all. We could go on to politics and finances and taxes and all that sort of stuff. We could all talk for a long time, but there are a lot of logistics involved in taking over a business.
Mm-hmm. Our audiences are often, farmers, dealers. What do you think that many people do not realize about running a short line equipment manufacturing operation?
The time, the energy.
The gray hair.
Yeah, look at that one.
He's older.
The time away from your family.
He doesn't have to work with himself, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't argue a lot with myself.
Yeah. A lot of these are named Glenn.
Yeah.
I definitely have named each one. So.
But I think a lot of people think it's just easy street. I was like, oh yeah, you guys, get to do what you want and just, and it's not. I mean, you really have to think about it. Right now we're mid-90s of employees or something like that.
Between 95 and 100 full-time employees.
Yeah. So that's the next family you got to worry about. Of course, you got your own family, but then you get them. Okay, you have to take care of them because they have children, they have wives, girlfriends, and they need the stability, and you need it too. And so it's a compromise. You got to work this thing through, and it's our job to keep the lights on, keep the machines running, finding new things to put on. If this machine's only running at 20% production, well, let's find some other stuff to put on this machine, and let's get it going. And so,
along the lines of perceptions, that's one extreme. I think people think that, yeah, sure, it's easier running the show. But I think there's also that other extreme, and this is not to alienate our audience, but I think that we could all look in the mirror and go, sometimes in agriculture, we get a little doom and gloom, and it's raining too much, or it's drought, or it's this, or it's that, and we're, I like to consider it more realistic than pessimistic. Mm-hmm. But those challenges, sometimes I think that we can get a little down in the challenges, when in reality, there's a lot of optimism, and there's a lot of moving forward, and there's a lot of innovation, and still entrepreneurial spirit alive in our industry.
On behalf of the staff of Farm Equipment, sure appreciate you making some time for us today and tell a very interesting story about your fourth generation business.
We very much appreciate the opportunity.
It.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.